Hello, everyone, and welcome to You Don't Know Her, the Mindset podcast, all about creating the best life possible for yourself, one by design, not by default. And I'm absolutely delighted to announce this guest that we've managed to secure today, someone that I've only met earlier this year, actually, Dr. Ishani Rao. So, Ishani, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, how are you? Would you mind giving us a little bit of your background, kind of where you are at the moment?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Luke. I'm really excited to hear about what you've been doing and really inspired by the fact that you've gone into public speaking and you've been really motivated by what you're doing. So that's really nice to hear. My name's Dr. Ishani Rao, and I am an NHS GP and an emergency doctor. So at the moment, I am covering the London ambulance call outs, which I absolutely love. But a lot of the time, I'm actually working on mental health and on activism and on trying to kind of make the world a better place for people that are trying to advocate for good causes. So I grew up in Spain when I was younger, and then I moved to university when I was 18 in London. I went to King's College London, took a couple of degrees there, including women's health, and now I'm taking a master's in global health policy because I seem to be addicted to education.
I was going to say, is there any limit to your brain? You just wanted to get every bit of information you can find in there, but no, it's
It's so
fantastic.
much fun to learn.
Yeah, that's the thing. To be honest with you, I mean, I went to university and did very well, and for me, it hasn't only helped me with my career, that degree, but I love the process of learning, of doing the research, doing my dissertation, and things like that, and I think it's so important to be open-minded, and I think that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, about that idea of open-minded and realizing that people have a lot to offer, and people are expert in different fields. But with yourself specifically, I was so keen to bring you on because we met at a festival earlier this year, and you delivered a talk, and you really opened. You had the attention of a massive room, and lots of questions, and you were going through the crowd and taking different questions. So yeah, just in terms of mindset and where people are at. As a GP, do you see mindset having an impact on physical health as well? And can you speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually the first person to ever be able to take two psychiatry rotations as a junior doctor. Previously, with Health Education England, we weren't allowed to do that because they said that there was too much overlap and that it wouldn't kind of advance our knowledge and we'd have to do different specialties. But I said, well, you're allowing us to do two medical rotations or two surgical rotations. So why are you not allowing us to do two psychiatric rotations when there's so much diversity within that? So I really became interested in mental health as a junior doctor. And then when I qualified as a GP and going through hospitals, I realized actually with physical health, how much overlap there is with our mind and our mindset and with the way that we're thinking, the way that we're perceiving things. So I realized that actually when we start focusing on the mind, that has so much impact on what the body is going through. And actually that can be even more beneficial than just treating the kind of end term physical condition anyway.
Hmm.
So I started thinking about in general practice if there's ways that we can make mental health more accessible, be addressing it more in every consultation. The way that you'd ask somebody about maybe a sprained ankle, should we be asking everybody about how they're feeling and their mental health? So yeah, there's a huge overlap between how the body is feeling and how the brain is feeling. And sometimes
Yeah.
we know that physical conditions such as back pain, chronic pain, jaw tension, muscle stresses, headaches, tension headaches, palpitations, gut problems, all of these things can be actually really impacted by the way that we're feeling and by our mood.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, you mentioned it yourself there, the mental health aspect of things, and we saw that a lot during the COVID pandemic that people weren't able to get access and really struggling, and even nurses were being admitted for mental health issues as well. And that just brings on a spiral of physical health things and bad habits, and I know from my own point of view, I'd suffered for many years with IBS and have recently managed to bring myself around on the back of some GP advice that it was mind related more than any physical abnormality. So yeah, is that something you agree with? Something you see that yeah, it is mind over matter as much as anything sometimes.
Yeah, obviously, sometimes there are physical conditions that we have to address, but a lot of the time, if we're feeling happy with those physical conditions, then at the end of the day, what does it matter? And also, your mindset is really influencing the development of inflammation, chronic pain, insomnia, which kind of exacerbates all of those physical problems anyway. So, when we get ourselves into a healthy, positive kind of being able to be empowered mindset, then I really think that that can influence how our body reacts and responds as well. And you just mentioned COVID. That was a really important time for me. I was going to say difficult, and it was difficult, but actually, it was a really important time where we saw how we reacted under pressure. I was supposed to be running a conservation clinic in the jungle in Mexico during 2020 for 6 months, and it obviously got cancelled. And I had to come back, and I was working as the COVID doctor on COVID wards, and I was working in A&E. And I didn't know how to get all of my energy out, and I knew I wasn't managing well. And so I did two things. I one put together a charity book where we collected loads of stories and poems from healthcare workers who were also struggling. So it was their way of just being able to express how they were feeling. And all of the money from that went to NHS COVID charities, and it was available at Waterstones. I did that with my best friend who's a heart surgeon. And then the other thing that I did to try and not fall into poor coping strategies, such as like an erratic routine. Obviously, I was working night shifts and drinking too much wine. I knew that I would be able to fall into just bad habits of junk eating and things
Yeah.
like that. So I ended up getting a therapist that was free for frontline workers. And it was really one of the best things that I've ever done. And I've been able to apply what she taught me to everything that I've done since then, whether it's been activist trauma or a GP training or family stresses. So really having that therapy just changed my mindset and really helped me to manage with difficult conditions.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. I've been through therapy and hypnotherapy as well, and I think it's just it's some people I think don't like to talk about it as a sign of weakness maybe, but I think it's so important to admit or realize if there's something that you can do to improve as well. But Ashani, I wanted to have a chat with you today, and it ties into the whole open-mindedness thing, and I've always thought that people are maybe in two camps, and I think people that maybe aren't open-minded, maybe might not even make it this far in the video, but those that are open-minded and are wanting to learn about how we can best improve ourselves, I think what your message is one of a plant-based diet as well, and how that can improve the medical field. Would you be able to speak to that kind of about your journey into that, your discovery of it, and kind of your perception of that within the medical world as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I started asking my parents from a very young age if I could stop eating animals
Mm,
because we grew up around dogs and we had cats and we had hamsters and rabbits and fish and all of these lovely creatures. And I thought it doesn't make sense that we're eating these beautiful animals on our plates. And so my parents said, no, 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 we'll think about it when you're 10, see how you feel when you're 10. So on my 10th birthday, I became vegetarian. I then realized that I was still doing harm to beautiful animals, even as a vegetarian, because of the implications of the egg and dairy industry. So when I was about 23, 24, I'd say it was about 8, 9 years ago,
mm,
I went fully vegan and I then became an activist in so many ways. And that was a plant-based activist, that was an environmental activist, that was advocating for other activists and looking after their mental health. So it really changed my life, this journey where I realized the impact that we can have as individuals to make the world a better place. And I really, really do believe that peace begins on your plate. It's a decision that we make every day.
mhm,
Food is so political. There are so many alternatives now that I didn't want to be contributing to an industry that's based on, exploitation of the female reproductive system, but
mhm,
also on exploitation of animals that don't want to be injured or slaughtered for us when we have so many other easier alternatives. So that was one way that I became so empowered by that journey, and it really changed my life because I feel much better in terms of health.
mhm.
I feel stronger, I've got more energy. I remember coming back from 12, 13 hour shifts and I didn't have any energy. And now I barely feel tired, but I think because I'm eating,
Yeah,
8, 9, 10 pieces of fruit and veg a day and just
yeah.
eating well. and looking after myself as well, and just being more conscious of what I'm putting into my body.
Yeah.
I think there's so many ways that we can become activists and we can become better people and encourage other people to kind of think about their decisions as well, whether that's buying secondhand or
Yeah.
whether that's, switching our energy providers and our banks to more sustainable things. But I just think that food is one thing that's so important and should be so social. And I've seen it have a huge impact on my patients. People, when people feel bad, they eat badly, they crave junk food and sugary food and processed food,
Mhm.
and then in turn they feel worse.
Mm.
But actually, when you've trained your body to be addicted to salads and beetroot and quinoa and and grains and all of these delicious, cheap, healthy, easy things,
Mm.
you feel so much better. And I see that in my patients when so
Yeah.
many diseases are caused by lifestyle conditions.
Yeah, I mean, you've said so much there, Ishani. That's absolutely amazing, and you picked up on the energy, the kind of feeling better within yourself internally, and that's actually what got me started on the journey. It was back in 2019. I watched a documentary called Game Changers, which was all about elite athletic performance, and for me, tennis is the main sport I play, and my hero was and still is Novak Djokovic, and he is by far and away the most successful athlete on the planet of all time in an era among the greatest players of all time. I'd say Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Andy Murray, and himself. And he's the one, Novak Djokovic is the only one that's still actively, at the age of 37, actively on court playing and winning tournaments when Federer's retired at 36. Nadal's retired in his early 30s and had massive injury problems, and Murray had crippling injury problems, which ended his career. And all three of those other players were players at the very top of their field. And I do believe that all of them could have had what Djokovic had if they had that extra energy and that extra fitness, which Djokovic has shown so well. And does that surprise you that Djokovic, being plant-based, is now winning his first Olympic gold medal at the age of 37 and not showing any signs to stop? And does that
It
kind of align
does
with what you know?
not surprise me. If we look at Serena Williams, if we look at Lewis Hamilton, if we look at the game changers,
Yeah.
these people are more plant-based and they're more vegan.
Yeah.
And we know, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, he predominantly eats a vegan diet. I
Mm,
heard him on a podcast with Rich Roll, who's
mm,
an ultra endurance athlete,
mm.
ex-lawyer, became an alcoholic, and he then realized that he needed to change his life and went to rehab and became, ethically plant-based, and now is an ultra endurance athlete. And
Mm.
I hear so many stories, not just from sports people, but from colleagues and from mental health practitioners who are within the vegan movement, that say that they used to get chronic pain, they used to take ages to recover from injuries, they used to have all of these different ailments and inflammatory conditions, gut problems,
Mm.
and now they've almost reverse these things with a plant-based diet, because we
Yeah.
know it's super anti-inflammatory. We know that all the nutrients are there. You can get all of the nutrients and the protein and the amino acids and the good fats from a plant-based diet. So
Yeah.
it really doesn't surprise me. And I've actually made an album on Facebook called like Vegan Wins, and
Mm.
it's filled with all of these different restaurants which have gone vegan,
Mm.
universities, all of the different councils, all of the different sports people who have gone vegan. And
Yeah.
there's so many people that we really can't deny the evidence
Yeah.
anymore.
I know it's honestly, the more I read into it, the more I look into it, the more I can't understand why anyone wouldn't, because everything seems to have in my life just got so much better since making that change, and that's internally, and it's the advantages of having that movement. And you mentioned restaurants there, and that's really interesting because this is one of the things people say, I would give it up, but I can't give up the cheese, or I would give it up, but it's the taste. And what people probably aren't aware of, and I wasn't aware of until recently, is the most successful restaurant in the world, 11 Madison Park in New York, triple Michelin starred, might be two Michelin stars now, but it's got a 6 month waiting list. It charges hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the tasting menu, completely vegan, and everyone loves it. So,
Brilliant, exactly. And some of the best restaurants in London that I've ever
mm,
been to are completely vegan. And I think, a lot of this, the psychology of this with the sports athletes and with the restaurants and with the doctors that are now doing incredibly well as advocating for plants. For example, I'm in plant-based health professionals
mm,
and we're doing amazingly well. And I think a lot of it is that we need to prove ourselves in a
mm,
way. We want to show people that we're not weak, we don't get sick, that we're doing well, that everything tastes good, that it's cheap, that it's accessible. So a lot of it is that we're really motivated to show people that this is possible and accessible and easy and manageable. So I think there's a lot of that kind of psychological drive behind that for the restaurants to be the best and the sports people to be the best. But yeah, I think I do hear from so many people, including patients, that when they cut out all of the processed junk food, animal products, dairy, then everybody starts to just improve these chronic conditions, but also start to have more energy and just feel better in themselves. And there is truly a relationship between our gut and our brain. There's the gut-brain axis, which is a direct and indirect pathway between our brain, the vagus nerve, the stomach, neurotransmitters, serotonin, which is predominantly released in the gut, which is obviously a feel-good hormone, which is responsible for the way that we're feeling in positive moods. So it would be silly for us to think that what we were eating doesn't actually affect our mental health and our performance.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. And there's so much evidence, there's so much data behind the links between your diet and diseases, some of the major killers in the world. Heart disease, cancers, mental health illnesses, as you mentioned, and diabetes, and these are really serious conditions that can massively reduce your quality of life and reduce your life expectancy. And do you think the medical world has enough of a knowledge of that? Do you think there's enough training for general practitioners around this idea of diet having as big impact on the body?
I wish there was, and we are trying so hard to get the information out there. I do all of these talks and all of these workshops and everything in my free time because I truly believe that if we could get these basic messages across to the medical world and to healthcare professionals, we would be saving so much time, money, resources, mortality, morbidity, improving quality of life for all of our patients because so many people don't know about the impact of diet and lifestyle and mood and mental health and relaxation, mindfulness on the body. It's not taught in medical school. We had probably one lecture on nutrition, and then the rest of it was something that I really had to start thinking about preventative medicine by myself and start finding these groups like ecomedics, plant-based health professionals, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine in the United States. But I had to find these groups and do all this homework, and they make it hard for us to find these facts and this research.
Yeah.
Science is ultimately sponsored by a lot of industries that want to continue for us to buy meat and to buy dairy and to buy cigarettes and all of these things. So it's up to us really to weed out the information and to try and communicate that with other healthcare professionals, and it's hard.
Yeah, I agree so much with I do think the animal agriculture industry is the world's best kept secret of how cruel it is as an industry and how immoral. Before I was vegan, I watched a documentary called That Sugar Film, which is all about sugar replacing fats, and Coca-Cola as a company funding the studies for that to get scientists to back the fact that sugars are healthy, which we know they're not. Tobacco was prescribed by doctors from the 30s to the 50s, and it was not linked with any diseases, which we now know is ridiculous. And do you think this is ringing true again? Do you think this is the state of the world we're in at the moment, that animal products and eating these products is going to have severe long-term impacts on people?
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to the kind of science behind it, the Freedom Food Alliance is a branch of Plant-Based News. So Robbie Lockie, who founded Plant-Based News, he started a group called the Freedom Food Alliance, which is essentially a group of experts that have to debunk the science
Mhm.
that is coming out. And that is the hardest job I have ever had to do, is to read scientific papers that are being published and to go through them and say, well, that doesn't make sense. That statistically is incorrect. That sample size is not big enough for us to kind of make any inferences from that. Oh, well, they didn't really mention this part or these limitations. That is so hard, trying to be one step ahead of science. But we have to be, because it is these huge corporations and all of this marketing and the lying in the media that's telling people that we need dairy to have strong bones and that you need X amount of chicken in your diet to do this or whatever
Yeah.
they're coming up with to try and sell these things.
Yeah.
And it's really to be one step ahead of that. But these things will have long-term effects on people. We know that this is passed on in our genetics, in our epigenetics. You know, what you do affects what your children does, and what your grandparents did affects what you do. And all of this is going to build up in ourselves if we don't start looking after ourselves, if we don't start spending more time outside, if we don't start eating whole food plant-based, if we keep ingesting all of this sugar and all of this high calorie processed food. It will have long-term effects on us, but these things are preventable and reversible if we just start thinking and being mindful about what we're doing from today. And
Mm,
like I said, food is political. That has such a big impact on what's happening in the world and where we're choosing to put our money.
mm.
And peace begins on our plate. And also we deserve to treat ourselves with that respect as well, and to look after ourselves. So I think it's something so easy and so empowering that we should all be thinking about.
Yeah, it is incredible, I think, and you've said so many things there. But one of the final points you made was it's where we put our money, and this is the issue. People don't think they're making a difference. They don't think they're making a change. But by continuing to buy these products, you're supporting the industry. You know, if you stop paying for it, it's going to stop its supply and demand. So yeah, it's an individual change, isn't it? It's the same as we've seen in many cases across different movements in the past, and we need to all make that decision now to work together.
Yeah, one person won't make a difference, said 8 billion people. And I truly believe that everything that we do makes a difference, whether it's buying sustainably or trying to decide what you're going to serve to people. You know, if you've got family coming over, if you've got friends coming over, or which restaurant you're going to go to, you can choose to be as ethical or unethical as you want. And I truly believe that corporations and governments will change based on what we're telling them that we want. I don't believe that they're ever going to develop some inherent compassion and morals. I believe that they come from us. And that's why I think it's so valuable for me to speak to every patient and explain to every patient that we can be making differences and that we can be empowered. But also, I go out and I do street activism as well. You know, I'm doing my master's in global health policy to come at things from a top down approach, but actually to go out and do the street activism and to actually show people what's happening on the streets with organizations like Anonymous for the Voiceless. And we show videos of slaughterhouses in Covent Garden. And it's so incredibly valuable and impactful. And I actually think that that is going to be the thing that guides corporations is by the consumers saying what we want to see on the shelves and where we want to eat, and that we don't want animals to be abused from meals. We want to see all of the meat alternatives and the tofu and all of the delicious vegan things and the milk alternatives. So that's what we should be paying for.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate that. Well, I can't believe we're at this point of the show already, Ishani, but we're there. We're done. We've hit our time, but I really do appreciate. I think you've given us all a lot of useful information there, a lot of wisdom from your experience. Final question is just if people want to learn more about yourself, or if you've got any resources you'd like to direct people to, what would you point the people towards?
Yeah, so I you can find me on LinkedIn, so Dr. Ishani Rao, and you can just drop me a message on there if you've got anything interesting that you're going on to, or if you think that you've got any projects that I might be able to help with, or at least link you with people that might be able to help. I'm a GP, so I feel like at the moment sometimes I'm a bit of a glorified secretary, but I'm very good at networking and linking people up that have brilliant ideas. And you also need to check out plant-based health professionals because they have some incredible resources for people that might benefit from a plant-based diet. And if you are in the healthcare industry, then check out Ecomedics because we're an organization that focuses on sustainability within the NHS. And actually, we realize that the NHS has a huge impact on carbon emissions, and we want to try and reduce that as healthcare professionals. I'd also check out things like Veganuary because we've got Christmas coming up. And if you want any delicious recipes, then I always go to the reliable and trusty Bosch team because they make everything really quick, easy, and delicious. So a whole range of resources there, but do feel free to reach out to me either on Instagram or LinkedIn at Dr. Ishani Rao.
Perfect, Ishani. Thank you very much, and look forward to speaking to you again.
My pleasure, Luke. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.